me ask you something. How many times have you thought, I'll put myself forward for that next role, whether it's partner or otherwise, when I feel more confident? Or I'll start leading that client meeting when I'm sure I know what I'm doing. Or I'll have that conversation about my career progression when I feel ready. Now, here's the problem. You're waiting for a feeling that comes only after you've done the thing, not before. And I've watched talented professionals postpone their career progression for years because they don't feel confident enough yet. Meanwhile, less technically brilliant colleagues stride ahead because they've backed themselves before they've felt ready. The confidence gap isn't about what you're capable of. It's about the story you're telling yourself about what you're capable of. I'll say that again. The confidence gap isn't about what you're capable of. It's about the story you're telling yourself about what you're capable of. And that story is holding you back. This is a How to Make Partner podcast with me, Heather Townsend, the author of Poise of Partnership and co-author of How to Make Partner and Still Have a Life. In this podcast, I'll be highlighting some of the great stuff in our Progress to Partner Academy. New episodes are released weekly, so press subscribe so you never miss a new episode. Right, let's talk about the confidence gap and why waiting to feel ready is killing your partnership chances. I had a conversation last month with a director at a top 50 law firm. They were an absolutely brilliant lawyer. Technically excellent, great client relationships. She'd been told she was on partnership track. So I asked her, what's stopping you from putting yourself forward this year? Make it happen this year. She said, I know my partners want me to get there, but I don't just feel confident enough yet. I think I need another year or two to feel really ready. I asked her, what will make you feel really ready? Then there was a long pause and I said, well, I'm not sure. I suppose I need to feel more confident about winning work, but maybe being better in pitches, about maybe being more confident managing difficult conversations with partners. And here's the truth I told her. You'll never feel confident about those things until you've done them repeatedly. Confidence isn't the starting point, it's the result. And this is the backward thinking that we have about confidence. Most professionals in practice think the sequence goes like this. First, you gain confidence, then you take action, then you get results. But that's backwards. The actual sequence is you take actions, you get results, even small ones, and then you build confidence. Every partner I've worked with will tell you the same thing. They didn't feel ready when they made partner. They didn't feel confident when they won their first major piece of work. They didn't feel ready when they first led a client pitch. They did it anyway. They learned from it and the confidence came afterwards. In chapter 2 of Poise of Partnership, I talk about the mindset shift from employee to business owner. Part of that shift is understanding that you'll spend your entire partnership career doing things before you're ready. That's the job. If you wait until you're certain, you'll never do anything that matters. And here are the 3 lies that this confidence gap whispers to you. And they keep you stuck, these lies. Let me expose them. Lie number 1, everyone else feels confident, so I must be behind. You look around at your peers and they seem assured, composed, ready. What you don't see is that most of them are faking it. They are as uncertain as you are. They've just decided to act despite the uncertainty rather than waiting for it to disappear. One of the partners I work with told me something absolutely brilliant. He said when he was going through the partnership admissions process, he was convinced that everyone else had it figured out. Then when he made partner and discovered that everyone was they were just as terrified and uncertain as he was. They'd just hidden it better. So lie number 2, I need to know everything before I can proceed. You think you need complete mastery before you can step up. But partnership isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing how to figure things out. Your partners don't expect you to have all the answers. They expect you to know how to find the answers. The professionals who wait until they know everything never put themselves forward. They're letting perfectionism get in the way because there's always something else to learn. There's always another skill to master, always a reason to wait one more year. Meanwhile, the professionals who understand that making partnership is about judgment are moving ahead. Line number 3, if I don't feel confident, I'll come across as incompetent. After all, you have a high charge-out rate, and this is the dangerous one. You think if you don't feel confident internally, it will show externally and damage your reputation. But here's what actually happens. When you take action despite not feeling confident, you'll come across as brave and proactive. When you wait until you feel confident, you'll come across as hesitant and risk-averse. Guess which one looks like partnership material? Your partners aren't looking for people who feel confident. They're looking for people who can deliver results despite uncertainty. That's what business ownership is. If you're waiting to feel certain before you act, you're demonstrating that you don't understand what partnership actually requires. So what do you do instead? Stop asking yourself, do I feel confident enough to do this? And then start asking yourself, if I felt completely confident right now, what would I do differently? It's a great phrase. If I felt completely confident right now, what would I do differently? Would you put yourself forward for partnership this year instead of waiting another year? Would you lead that client meeting instead of deferring it to your partner? Would you make those business development calls you've been putting off? Would you have that career conversation you've been avoiding? Whatever your answer is, that's what you need to do this week. Not when you feel ready, not when you feel confident, this week. Because the confidence you're waiting for doesn't arrive as a gift from the universe. It arrives as a consequence of doing the thing you're afraid of doing. And forget about this whole manifesting self. Thinking about it is not as good as doing it. Let me give you a concrete example. I worked with a senior manager who's terrified of pitching for work, but they work within audit, not for profit. So pitching for work was exactly how they won work. And it was always a competitive pitch because the organizations they used had governance that said we need 3 people when we pitch. So for 2 years, she avoided it. She kind of said, oh, I can't lead a pitch. I'll be on the pitch, but I won't lead the pitch. She told herself she needed to be more confident first. She needed more preparation, more practice, more certainty. And finally, a partner said, it's time you led this piece of work. This is an audit that's worth 50 grand. It's not a big one. We'd like you to lead it. And she was convinced she was going to mess up. She prepared obsessively. She barely slept the night before. She walked into that pitch feeling anything but confident. But she won the work. Not because she felt confident, because she prepared properly and delivered a solid pitch despite feeling terrified. And you know what happened? The next pitch was easier. Still uncomfortable, but easier. By the 5th pitch, she wasn't terrified anymore. She still didn't feel completely confident. She still had that feeling of nerve. She still had that pit of the stomach moment, but she felt capable. And she knew that these were normal reactions to a stressful situation. And that's what matters. The confidence came from doing the thing she was afraid of doing, not before. This is how it works. Action first, results second, confidence third, not the other way around, which is what our brain wants us to do because it wants to keep us safe. So if you're waiting to feel ready before you put yourself forward for partnership, you're always going to be waiting forever. The professionals who make part aren't the ones that felt confident, that knew they were ready. They were the ones who acted before they felt confident and figured it out as they went along. And if you're like, well, what is it that I need to do first? Take our free partnership readiness assessment. It's about 12 minutes long, but it will show you exactly which of the 12 key indicators you need to focus on. And sometimes just knowing specifically what to work on helps close the confidence gap because you're no longer facing a vague, overwhelming goal. Now, if you then go, okay, so I can work out what I need to focus on, but how do I then build the plan? How do I make sure I've got time for this? That's when you buy an annual membership of Progress to Partner Academy, and our on-demand course, How to Truly Commit to Moving Your Career Forward, includes modules specifically on how to build your career plan, how to put together your one big focus so you know what you're doing for the next 90 days, but also how to build the courage to take action even when you're uncertain. You'll work through exercises that help you reframe your internal narrative and take the first steps despite not feeling completely ready. And also in Progress to Partner, we've got recorded masterclasses on topics like how to change your firm's perception of you when you're seen as just a safe pair of hands. We've got a great little recording on overcoming imposter syndrome on the partnership track. Now, I popped a link to the partnership readiness assessment on our Progress to Partner Academy directly in the show notes for this episode. Also in the show notes, you'll find links to my books, Voice of Partnership and How to Make Partners Still Have a Life, so you can easily find them on Amazon. And as a thank you for listening, there's also a link for a 10% discount on annual membership of our Progress to Partner Academy using the code podcast10. That's all for this episode of the How to Make Partner podcast. What's your action for this week? So answer this question honestly. Before I start, your action, of course, is to do the partnership readiness assessment. But after that, answer this question honestly. If you felt completely confident right now, what would you do differently? Write down your answer, then pick one thing from that list and do it this week. Not when you feel ready, this week. The confidence will come from doing, not before it. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or give us a comment on Substack. This helps us get the word out to others who may need this advice too. And remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. Thank you for listening.